Yeah, he's from Lincoln.
My U.S. geography is a little off, but what state is What state is that?
Nebraska.
I see.
Hey,
I'm not
we've got
going to
him
say
calling
the
back.
H word, but okay.
Come on, I wanted to interview the guy anyway, regardless. When I found out he was in Lincoln, that was just like icing on the cake.
I think we got our guest on the line. Welcome, Justyn.
How's it going?
Going really good. Thanks for calling in. We're glad to have you on the show tonight. How'd training go tonight?
You know, it went pretty well. Wednesdays, it's mostly conditioning, and it was good and tiring, but not so much to where I can't go and get a little bit more cardio at the gym here in about 10 minutes.
Very good. Now, we were just talking about the fact that you're in Lincoln, and I'm an Omaha guy. My co-host Peter is from Ottawa. So what would you say about the MMA scene right now in Nebraska? It seems like it's really taken off.
It is. I think, we just got it sanctioned about 2 years ago, and it keeps getting bigger. Now originally there was one promotion that was working here, then there was two, then one of them kind of faded off, now there's two again, and it's getting a little bigger. I think it's getting a little more recognition. I remember a year ago when I told people I did MMA, there was no way to tell them anything other than cage fighting. So what's MMA? Mixed martial arts. What's that? Cage fighting. Oh, cage fighting. And now when I say mixed martial arts or MMA, they, half of them get it. So we still got room to grow and a lot of way to go, but it's getting better.
Yeah,
I find that funny when I try to explain. I do an MMA podcast. I get MMA. What's that? UFC. What's that? Cage fighting. Oh, cage fighting. Okay, I know what that is. I'm like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm kind of one of those particular people where I'll tell them think cage fighting, and then after they say get it, I'm like, the sport's called mixed martial arts. Even when they call it UFC, because people say, oh, I hear you do UFC fighting. I say, I wish. That's the goal, but I'm not there yet. So that way they understand the difference too, because that's the other thing about our sport is you've got to continuously educate everyone on it if you want it to grow.
That's very true. Now, early on, when I first started going to MMA shows here, you were right. It wasn't sanctioned in Nebraska, and the only way you could see a show was to go across the river to Council Bluffs. It was either a Victory Fighting show or sometimes you'd get these little Omaha Fight Club shows. Did you ever work any of those?
I never actually fought Omaha Fight Club. Originally, I was thinking about it before I even started fighting MMA because that was all there was. And luckily, before I actually had my first fight is when it got sanctioned in Nebraska, so there were Lincoln shows because, I don't like to talk a lot of trash, but it says something when a place is called Omaha Fight Club, and as soon as it got sanctioned in Nebraska, they kick over to Iowa. Because in Iowa, it still wasn't sanctioned in amateur. And then once it got sanctioned in amateur in Iowa, they came back to Nebraska.
Exactly.
So I've been to their shows. I've been to their shows, but I never fought for them, which I saw some of the... they had good fights. That was one of those shows where the last three fights were good. Everything else was sometimes, hey, you want to fight? Yeah. Kicking people out of the crowd almost. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And some of the people that I saw come out for those fights, they had on belts that I thought they'd bought at Walmart. It was a very interesting mix. Like you'd say, the top of the card fights were good. The rest would be like, what's this guy doing in the cage? But it was at least a way. It was a way to get a fix of MMA before it got legalized here. So, but let's talk about more current things because you had a really impressive win over Alex Huddleston at Titan Fighting 20, which a lot of people saw on HDNet Fights on 306 on DirecTV and wherever else it's available. You're home for MMA, as they like to say, and you made a big name for yourself in that fight.
Yeah, I was actually really pleased to get that fight because I got it about a week before. They called my manager and asked if I take the fight. I think his fighter, I'm not sure if he got hurt, didn't take the fight or whatnot, but thankfully he wasn't able to fight. That was a good fight for me. It was actually, some of my friends give me a hard time that maybe the first time I'm on television isn't the right time to practice southpaw for the first time. Because I've trained in southpaw a little bit, but I've never fought it. And that first round I came out in southpaw, and I think I did okay, but I definitely thought I got my stride back when the second round when I decided to go back to orthodox. And I told him, it kind of cost me a little bit, but unless you practice, you can practice all you want, but unless you get it and do it in the fight and work it, you're never going to know where it is because you never fight the same way you spar.
Right, I agree. Yeah, you had to get that live experience in the cage and make sure that you could handle it in actual combat experience and not just in the gym. So I don't think it hurt you anyway because you won the fight. So it didn't turn out that badly.
No, I don't think it hurt me. And one of the reasons I did it was because I was trying to keep away from his right. The first time I ever fought anyone taller than me, and he's 4 inches taller than me. And so I was trying to keep away from the right. I think my defense was okay. You see a little bit of it. I got to practice my windshield wiper defense, just use my right hand just to block punches. But I did catch one that I might not have caught in orthodox stance, and that didn't feel great. And to be honest, after the first minute, the rest of that fight is one of those where I was my eyes were floating a little bit, and so I had to work through that and work around that as well.
Do you think? Sorry, let me start over again. I lost train of thought. Judging by your record, you hardly ever go out of the first round. In fact, your last fight was only in the round 2. Do you think you'll ever go into a third round in upcoming fights, or are you always going in that first round thinking I'm going to end this early and quick?
I think eventually I'm sure I'll go into the third round. As a matter of fact, even in my amateur career, I've never been to the third round. I've only been to the second round, I think, 3 times. But and a lot of it's because I'm looking for finishes. It's not only am I looking for finishes to be more exciting, I'm looking for finishes so I can get out of there. It's kind of like there's nothing that'll make me work a takedown or takedown defense harder than when our instructor tells us, if you get taken down, you do 25 push-ups. I'll do more work keeping myself from getting taken down than I would have doing the 25 push-ups. I just don't want to do extra push-ups. I hate them so much that I'll work harder not to get them. So a lot of it is finishing the fight just so I can finish the fight. And I really don't want to leave it in the hands of the judges. Not that I'm not confident, but especially when you're in someone else's backyard, it's almost like, you've got to beat the champ to be the champ. You've got to beat the home guy to beat the home guy. You've got to leave no room in the judges' minds for who won that fight. Was it the local boy or the guy who's coming in our backyard thinking he's all tough?
I couldn't agree more. I always end the show every week with never leave it to the judges, and I couldn't have said it better myself right there.
Yeah, and I think you also hit on one of Peter's other favorite phrases is to be the man, you got to beat the man. So that leads me to ask the question, are you a bit of a pro wrestling fan?
I'm really not. Not that I've never watched it when I was younger, but I haven't really kept up with it anymore. Nothing wrong with it. I think they've, from my friends who watch it, it seems like they've actually done a really good job of moving on from the whole it's real. There's no reason anymore to pretend it's real, but it doesn't matter. People are there for the excitement. They're not there to see if it's a real wrestling match. The athletes are real, and the storyline is entertaining. That's what people are looking for it too. So I think I don't really watch anymore, but I think it's really almost by really bringing out the theatrical portion of it, they've legitimized it. Whether you really think the opposite would be true, they've legitimized pro wrestling by coming to terms with the entertainment aspect of it.
Oh, I totally agree. And that is one of the things that we actually debate about here on the show from time to time is there are hardcore MMA fans who don't like hearing fighters talk smack because they go, oh, that's pro wrestling stuff. And that's, they're trying to make it fake when we know that pro wrestling is fake and we want MMA to be real. And then on the other hand, you get promos like the one we heard from Chael Sonnen this weekend where he's literally putting people in the building to watch him fight because they either like what he had to say or they hate what he had to say, but they have an opinion on it. So how do you feel about cutting promos before or after fights?
I think there's room for it. I wish I was one of those guys who could be more, jerky and, call people up, but I'm not. I've always been a nice guy. I've never had a bad thing to say about an opponent before or after the fight. I realize that sometimes that's how you sell tickets. I think Chael Sonnen's was a little bit extreme. What did he went too far in acting like there's this huge beef before him and Anderson Silva. forgetting about the fact that after the fight, Anderson Silva bowed down to him, and basically telling him, I know you were working me, you're a great competitor. And is he mad about that? I think he went a little too far in fabricating bad blood, but I don't think there's anything wrong with a lot of fighters who, will talk that trash, we'll let them know that's what they're planning to do, and a lot of it's just about getting in someone's head. It's not even about selling tickets as much as, can I get him angry, can I get him worked up, can I get him, off his game so he fights emotionally instead of with his brain.